What really awakens a man's desire? That is the question that spans generations, relationships, myths, and strategies. But what few realize is that true masculine desire does not arise from what is offered externally, but from that which confronts him internally. And the first thing that touches that desire is not the body, it is freedom. Imagine a woman walking alone through an unfamiliar city. She is not afraid, not because the world is safe, but because she chose to be there. Every step she takes carries a decision. Every glance, a conscious presence. This woman awakens desire, not because she displays something, but because she does not hide from herself. She is whole, and that wholeness provokes. For Sartre, a human being has no predefined essence. He is what he chooses to be. That freedom is radical, and for that very reason, frightening. Many flee from it. Many men, in particular, desire women who do not force them to question themselves. They want comfort, predictability, emotional servitude. But those men do not feel true desire. They feel need. True desire is born when a man encounters a woman who lives as a project, who builds herself every day, who does not wait to be saved, discovered, or completed. A woman who has chosen to be free, and who, precisely for that reason, can choose to be with someone. Freedom provokes desire because it carries the possibility of no. A man knows, deep down, that a free woman can leave at any moment, and it is then that he sees himself, not as an owner, but as someone facing a choice he cannot control. This forces him to look at himself, to ask, why do I want to be with her? Who am I when I'm with her? Freedom, therefore, is not just a seductive attribute. It is a mirror, an invitation. When a woman lives in freedom, she awakens in the other the desire to free himself as well. And that is infinitely more powerful than any momentary seduction. But here comes the crucial point. Are you living to be chosen, or to choose yourself? This question is uncomfortable because many of us were taught to wait for approval, validation, love. We grew up learning that we must mold ourselves to fit, that we must silence ourselves to please, that we must remain beautiful, available, understanding, and docile. But freedom is not docile. It is courageous. It demands confrontation, decision, responsibility. To be free is to choose yourself every day, even when that means losing someone's attention, even when that means being alone. To be free is to uphold your own solitude without offering it as a threat. It is not making the other a pretext to exist. And a man feels that. He feels when a woman doesn't need him. And paradoxically, it is there that the deepest desire is born, because she doesn't want him out of need. She wants him by choice. Have you ever met someone who was so centered, so complete, so at peace with her own journey, that being by her side felt like a privilege, not a favor? It is this kind of presence that freedom generates. Not arrogance, but dignity. And here arises another question. Are you living to be desired, or to desire yourself? Sartre would say that there is only freedom where there is consciousness, and there is only true desire where there is freedom. The woman who awakens desire is not the one who adapts to someone else's desire. She is the one who sustains her own desire, even when it scares, even when it pushes away, because she understands that losing someone else is never as serious as losing herself. A man's desire for this woman is not born of lack. It is born of admiration, of astonishment, of seeing himself before someone who does not fit into labels, who cannot be explained by formulas, who is alive and free. So before asking how to make a man desire you, ask yourself, are you free to be who you are? Because only when you are freedom does the other feel the urge to stay. There is a presence that penetrates the skin, that silences the environment, that transforms even the simplest gesture into something memorable. It has nothing to do with appearance. It has to do with depth. A man feels it, even if he doesn't know how to name it. He senses when he stands before someone who has already touched her own depths, who does not live only on the surface of life, but has already traversed its labyrinths. And it is this woman who awakens the desire that does not exhaust itself in sex, the desire that remains even after pleasure. Sartre said that every consciousness is consciousness of something. But there are consciousnesses that have never gone beyond the immediate, that avoid emptiness, boredom, doubt, that leave distracted, anesthetized, dodging difficult questions. Those are the consciousnesses that become shallow, transparent, and predictable. But the depth of a woman is not in her elaborate words. It is in the way she sustains what she feels, in the way she looks, not as someone seeking an answer, but as someone who already knows darkness. This woman does not need to speak of her pain to reveal it. She has already transformed it into presence. When a man finds that depth, something in him opens, because he senses that there is room to be, not to impress, not to perform, but simply to exist. There is a silent, almost banal scene that reveals this perfectly. A couple having dinner, without many words. The woman looks at the man and simply listens. She does not interrupt him, does not try to fix what he feels. She simply sees him, whole, without fear of discomfort. That listening, that surrender, that absence of haste, that is depth. But this point demands courage. Because to be deep, one must first cross oneself. One must face memories that hurt, acknowledge masks, admit flaws. One must stop being nice to be true. And that truth does not need to shout. It inhabits the body, the way one sits, the pause between one speech and another. It reveals itself in small silences. And it is in those silences that desire ignites. Because there is no game there. There is presence. There is soul. Have you noticed how some women occupy space without needing to dominate it? They don't need to be the center. They are the background, the depth of the scene. And that attracts more than any strategy. The man, faced with this, finds himself naked. Because he knows he cannot lie, he cannot perform. And that requirement unsettles him, but it also frees him. The woman who touches that point is rare. Not because she was born special, but because she dared to dive into herself. And by doing so, she became capable of welcoming someone else's dive. She does not get scared of what is ugly, broken, or imperfect, because she has already made peace with her own shadow. Sartre spoke of nausea as that moment when we perceive the absurdity of existence, when we look at the world and see that nothing has guaranteed meaning. It is in that void that depth is born, not as a response, but as surrender. Have you crossed your nausea? Because only those who have passed through it can look into a man's eyes and say, I see you. And to see, at that level, is what most awakens desire. Depth is not charming. It is overwhelming, not because it dominates the other, but because it reveals what is most intimate in him. By touching that depth in herself, the woman becomes a mirror, and the man, inevitably, sees himself. That is why the most enduring desire is born there, where there is truth, where there is silence, where there is room to be without masks. So, before asking how to keep a man's interest, ask yourself, have you dived deep enough into yourself to not fear what you will find in the other? Because no one desires what is shallow, but everyone remembers what, once, touched them deeply. There is a type of woman who scares, not for being aggressive, but for being whole, who instead of asking, what do you want from me, asks, what do I want from myself, who does not wait for life to save her, nor for love to justify her. She does not need someone to rescue her because she has already understood that the weight of existing is hers. This woman awakens desire, and not just any desire, but the desire of the man who is ready to grow. Sartre said, we are condemned to be free, and with it comes an inevitable companion, responsibility. To be free is anguishing because we no longer have anyone to blame. There is no God, destiny, or genetics that exonerate us from authorship of our choices, and it is precisely that anguish that many avoid, including in love. When a man finds a woman who assumes her own existence, something moves within him, because this woman does not demand, does not charge, does not manipulate. She chooses. She decides. She stays or leaves out of conviction, not emotional blackmail. And that, although uncomfortable, is deeply seductive. She does not expect him to make her happy. She builds her happiness with her own hands. She can cry, make mistakes, fail, but never play the victim. Because she knows that even suffering, if well lived, can be transformative. Responsibility is that, not hiding behind the other, not saying, I am like this because someone hurt me, not using the past as an eternal justification for present absences. Of course, we all have wounds, but there is a huge difference between acknowledging them and making them an identity. The woman who awakens the most authentic desire is the one who looks at her pain with lucidity and still decides to be the protagonist. And the man feels that. He senses when he stands before someone who does not blame him for her solitude, nor deifies him for his presence. Someone who chooses him, but does not need him. This kind of woman is dangerous to the immature, because she demands that the other grow as well. She does not accept being treated as a function. She is not there to heal, complete, or fill. She is there to share. And here comes the uncomfortable question. Are you demanding that a man make you happy, or are you living as if you were already whole? Responsibility also reveals itself in small gestures, in how you handle your emotions, in the way you react to conflict, in how you take care of yourself. When you take responsibility for what you feel, you stop expecting the other to guess your needs. This does not mean hardening. It means maturing. The responsible woman does not need to prove her strength. She simply lives her strength. She does not play games. She communicates. She does not dramatize. She confronts. And because of that, she becomes rare. Sartre spoke of bad faith as that attempt to flee from freedom by pretending we are things, objects. When you say, I had no choice, you are in bad faith. When you say, I am this way because I was raised that way, you are hiding. The woman who lives in bad faith will never be desired deeply, because one does not desire what is not free, and no one is free without responsibility. Have you noticed how some relationships are an eternal accusation? A game of you owe me, you hurt me, you made me this way? In them, there is no room for desire. There is only blame and wear. But when two free beings meet, something rare is born. A desire that is not possession, but admiration. An attraction that is not based on lack, but on respect. So before asking why a man pulls away, ask yourself, how much of my life have I truly taken ownership of? Because the woman who assumes her existence is the one no one ever forgets. A man may be enchanted by what he sees, but he only stays when he begins to see what you see. True desire is not only in the other's gaze, but in the vision you carry within yourself, in the direction toward which you are heading, in how you perceive the world, yourself, and what you wish to build. Sartre reminds us that the human being is a project, not a fixed object, but a constant movement toward what he is not yet. And that is fascinating, because desire does not fix itself on what is already complete, but on what is under construction. A man desires the woman who has vision because she is a path, not a destination. A woman who wakes up with clarity about what she wants, who has causes, ideas, passions, who is in the midst of something larger than herself. This woman awakens. She creates a field around herself, a magnetic field that cannot be explained with formulas, because she has direction, and that challenges, because when a man approaches, he finds himself asking, what are my directions? What am I building? And if he lacks the courage to look, he will flee. But if he is ready, he will want to walk beside you. The woman with vision does not depend on timing. She already knows where she wants to go. And that does not mean she has everything under control. It means she does not live adrift. Have you ever met someone who, when talking about their projects, their eyes shine, who turns a banal conversation into a manifesto, who infects you with the strength of what they believe? This person is desired because they are alive in their own journey. The woman who lives her project authentically becomes a source of inspiration, of restlessness, of movement. She does not need to ask, what do you look for in a woman? Because the answer is obvious. He looks for exactly what she already is. But beware, vision is not rigidity. It is not an inflexible plan. It is direction without losing listening. It is walking without crushing. The other, with certainties. True vision welcomes doubt, but does not get lost in it. Masculine desire is activated by potency, and potency lies in someone who lives a life with meaning, the meaning you yourself built. Because, as Sartre said, man is what he makes of what they made of him. Having a story is not enough. You must transform that story into a project. And here comes an uncomfortable question. Have you spoken more about what you desire, or about what you have already built? Because, vision is not discourse. It is action. It is presence. It is coherence between what is said and what is lived. The woman with vision does not wait to be led. She is already in motion. And that is profoundly erotic, because her path does not exclude the other, but neither does it depend on him. Have you ever stopped to notice how many times you hid your dreams so as not to scare someone? How many times you dimmed your light to fit into a man's field of vision? But true desire does not arise from fitting. It arises from expansion. When you occupy the entire space of your wanting, the other perceives that being with you is part of something alive, something that grows, something that goes beyond. Vision creates desire because it reveals time. It shows that being with you is participating in a story in motion, and desire loves stories. So before asking if a man sees a future by your side, ask yourself, what vision of the future do you offer to yourself? Because only those who have vision become unforgettable. There are people who enter a room and immediately become the center, not because they speak loudly, nor because they impose themselves, but because they are, truly. Their presence fills the space, creates silence, attracts. That is the presence that awakens desire, and it cannot be bought with appearance, nor learned in a course. Presence is not performance, it is surrender. A man feels when he is before someone who is not trying to seem, but simply is. Someone who inhabits the moment with depth, who is not hurried, anxious, or distracted, but surrendered, whole. Sartre said that the human being is a being in the world. We are always in situation, but some are only there with their bodies, and some are there with their whole being. The present woman does not live in the past, nor constantly project herself into the future. She is here, now, and that quality of attention, that silent listening, is what most provokes real desire. Because in a world where everyone is busy appearing interesting, she simply interests. Presence is tasting the coffee as you drink it. It is listening without thinking of the reply. It is touching without thinking of the effect. It is being without reservation. How many times have you been with someone who, even by your side, seemed far away? And how many times have you been with someone who, in a single look, made you feel seen? A man feels when you are not present, when you respond on impulse, when you are already thinking of the next sentence, when your body is there, but your mind is elsewhere, and that, little by little, cools any connection. On the other hand, when you are truly there, with all your senses, the other is summoned to do the same, because presence is contagious. It is in presence that desire takes hold. It is where touch becomes language, where silence is comfortable, where there is no need to prove anything. But there is something that deeply hinders presence. Fear. The fear of not being enough, of not pleasing, of not controlling the outcome. That fear causes you to be absent, even while trying to show yourself. The present woman is not free from fear, but she faces it, and chooses to stay, even trembling inside. She does not rush the encounter. She does not force intimacy. She does not flee discomfort. She allows the moment to reveal itself, and that is what creates the most powerful erotic tension, because desire is born from not knowing, and only in presence does mystery appear. Sartre reminds us that existence precedes essence. Therefore, you do not need to know who you are to be whole in the moment. You can discover that in the gesture, in the look, in the exchange. Presence is an act of faith in yourself, a silent statement. I am enough now. And that is why it is so rare, because it demands vulnerability. It requires that you drop the script, the mask, the control. Have you ever been with someone who made you forget time? Who made you feel that that moment was all that existed? That is presence. And that is unforgettable. So, before asking yourself if he is present for you, ask yourself, are you present for yourself? Because only those who inhabit the now awaken the desire that wants to stay. We live in a culture that insists on coherence. It expects you to be consistent, logical, predictable. But the human being is not made of straight lines. We are made of spirals, paradoxes, desires that contradict each other. And it is precisely in that imperfection that fascination resides. The woman who awakens the deepest desire is not the one who resolves all her contradictions, but the one who sustains them with dignity. She is strong and at the same time fragile, independent and needy, rational and deeply intuitive, and she knows it. She does not try to hide, nor justify. She simply allows herself to be whole. Sartre said, "Man is a useless passion." This uselessness is not contempt. It is potency. It is the recognition that we seek meaning where there is no manual. And for that very reason, we create, we invent, we oscillate, we love and hate with the same intensity. We want to be alone and accompanied. We desire security and adventure, all at once. The man who seeks a perfect, coherent and predictable woman perhaps does not truly want a woman. Perhaps he wants a function, a relief, a mirror that does not challenge him. But true desire is born when he finds someone who disarms him, someone who forces him to leave logic, who makes him feel, even without understanding. Contradiction is what keeps mystery alive. When you show only one side of yourself, the acceptable, coherent, pleasant side, you become decipherable, and what is fully decipherable ceases to provoke. It has already been conquered. It no longer unsettles. But the woman who sustains her complexity, she never runs out. She can cry one day and laugh the next. She can want distance, and at the same time, hope to be followed. She can want comfort and silence, distance and touch, and all of it is real. This woman is not unstable. She is alive, and the man's desire for her is renewed at every moment, because she never presents herself as a finished product. She is a process. Contradiction also reveals humanity. When you admit that you do not know, that you falter, that you feel jealousy even while feeling secure, that you want attention even while being self-sufficient, you show yourself whole. And that is deeply seductive, because the other perceives that he too can be flawed before you. Sartre saw the human being as lack, as that which is never fully what it desires to be. And that is why we seek, why we create, why we desire. If we were complete, there would be no movement. Desire is born of the gap, and contradiction is the honest acknowledgement of that gap. Have you ever felt ashamed of your ambivalences? Have you ever kept silent to avoid seeming confused? Have you ever pretended certainty when you were in doubt? But desire is born of doubt, of the game between revelation and mystery, of the tension between what is shown and what is hidden. The woman who awakens desire is the one who allows herself to be discovered bit by bit, who does not surrender as a manual, but as an enigma. And the man who desires her knows that he will never fully have her. And that is what keeps him there, because he does not desire domination. He desires the dance, the exchange, the broken mirror in which he also sees himself. So, before trying to seem resolved, ask yourself, do you have the courage to be contradictory before someone? Because whoever sustains contradiction with authenticity will never be forgotten. Finalizing with Block 7, the point of choice. A man's deepest desire is not to be necessary, it is to be chosen. There is an abyssal difference between being with someone because you need them and being with someone because you want them. Because even while being able to leave, you choose to stay. That free, conscious choice is what awakens the most visceral and also truest desire. Sartre said that man is the being whose projects are made without ever being the project. That is, we are always making ourselves, always choosing ourselves. We are never given, ready, closed. And for that reason, every relationship founded on possession is doomed to die, because it freezes the movement of existence. The woman who awakens desire is not the one who binds herself, but the one who every day chooses. chooses to be, chooses to share, chooses to remain, not out of fear of loneliness, but for love of shared freedom. This kind of woman is dangerous for insecure men, because she does not bond out of need. She can live alone. She can travel, grow, transform, and still return. She returns because she wants to, because she desires. And that free desire is irresistible. A man, upon realizing this, faces an abyss he cannot control. He cannot imprison. He can only conquer. And to truly conquer, he must become someone worthy of being chosen. Have you ever thought about the power in looking someone in the eyes and saying, "I could live without you, but I choose to be here"? That phrase carries the essence of authenticity, because it reveals that your life does not depend on the other, but can be enriched by them. And that is not selfishness, it is maturity. How many times have you stayed in relationships out of fear of being alone? How many times was love actually just not being able to bear the void? But there is no desire where there is obligation. Desire demands space. It needs to breathe. It needs to know that the other is there because they want to be, not because they have to be. The woman who chooses herself first becomes radically choosable. She does not beg for attention. She receives it naturally, because her presence is not a demand. It is an offering. This woman does not fear losing, because she knows she does not lose what is real. And more than that, she knows she never loses herself. Sartre believed that every choice builds who we are, and that not choosing is also a choice. Living in function of the other is denying your own freedom, and no one desires someone who has dimmed herself to fit. Choice, therefore, is both the end point and the starting point. When you choose to be with someone, knowing you could be alone, you elevate the relationship. You transform the bond into an encounter, and the encounter into creation. Have you ever chosen someone from your wholeness and not from your need? That question can change everything, because only those who choose themselves every day awaken in the other the desire to stay. You have touched 7 points, 7 places where desire is no longer artifice, nor lack, nor escape, where desire is existence in raw form, freedom, which challenges the man to grow, depth, which invites truth, responsibility, which demands maturity, vision, which projects a living future, presence, which transforms now into eternity, contradiction, which reveals wholeness, and finally, choice, which gives meaning to everything. These points are not techniques. They are states of being, and they are not achieved to please someone, but to live a life worth sharing. Because the most intense desire someone can feel for you is the reflection of the desire you have for yourself. Sartre did not believe in a prior essence. Everything is construction, and that is frightening, but also liberating. You can, at any moment, decide who you want to be, and you can, at any moment, awaken in the other the desire to be more, simply because you are being all that you are. So do not ask anymore how to make someone desire me. Ask, who do I choose to be today? What in me deserves to be desired? Because it was profoundly lived. And in touching those points within yourself, you stop seeking attention, because you become embodied attention. And no one, absolutely no one, forgets such a woman. In the comments, I invite you to share. Which of these 7 points do you already recognize in yourself, and which still needs to be touched with more courage? This answer is not for me, it is for you, because the most powerful desire is the one that begins within and overflows.